Some people love confident, smack-talking players. Some people hate it. But one thing's for sure, everybody loves clowning on people when the smack talk comes back to bite them. And Boaster came to realize that this week. It was brutal. I mean, he was on a podcast talking with Yinsu about how he felt like the form of his team was really good and how he felt like he'd beat a lot of the Madrid teams playing at the moment, and the quality wasn't very good. You can hear it from him.
I thought the level was quite low. But I can't talk because the level that we played at in the kickoffs was also quite low.
Define low.
There were moments of really good performance, I'd say, where protocols are doing people were doing quite good protocols and people were doing good strats, and it was like, oh, that's kind of cool, that's kind of sick. Oh, I could do that maybe. But there are also times where I was just like, what are people doing? 3v5 with using 2 ultimates. Who do you think you are? You think you're gonna win this? And then people just throwing stuff into. It was just crazy. There was a lot of throwing going on.
Okay, Heretics.
We beat them.
KC.
We beat them. I think we beat them. We lost to them in our previous form, but in our current form, we beat them now.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, this might come back and haunt you.
Yeah, I don't care. If I lose to them again, then so be it. But I don't want to lose to them again. I want to make sure that we're coming into this split and we're coming back firing.
He fired up.
If we lose versus Heretics, I know where this is going.
Yeah, flame his ass. Yeah. Flame his ass.
And then after that, they got absolutely destroyed by Heretics. Now, the second map was actually quite close, but the first one they got minced, and that was on one of Fnatic's historically best maps, their home territory of Icebox. And that led everybody to start clowning on them. Reddit threads all over the place. Even Ye was clowning on them. He did delete the tweet afterwards. But when Ye, who was playing some of the worst Valorant I've ever seen as part of Bleed, I'm not saying Ye himself was, but the whole team was. When Ye is clowning on you, oh my goodness, you know you're an easy target. So there was some information that came out afterwards. Fnatic were ill. So that explains some of the bad individual rounds that we saw, like this one on round 11 of Icebox, for example, where you just expect the players on a better day to be able to make better swings, hit better shots, maybe make some better decisions in some moments like this as well. And like I said, actually, the second map against Heretics, who are a damn good team, this was a close game. It went to overtime. It went deep into overtime. There was certainly chances for Fnatic to win it. And I thought they played actually a very good version of their Lotus here. And they just tripped up in some big mistake rounds. Round 10, round 18, being some big rounds that I think contributed to the snowballing effect of them losing the map later on, despite playing a really good game. And I think maybe some of the illness played into this with the unusual mistakes that we're seeing here in these couple of rounds. Otherwise, though, they did have some great rounds, although you'll have to go and watch the game to show them because I don't have time here. And they were toe-to-toe with Heretics, who are a top team in EMEA. Fnatic are not dominant. I don't think they're going to be dominant this year, but I think they are going to still be at the top with the other teams like KC, like Heretics, like Na'Vi, maybe like Vitality if they can pick things up. And I think in this instance they were under the weather. But there's a very big but to this, because while I have those opinions for their Lotus performance, Icebox was a different story, and in my opinion, Icebox is really where the focus should be for this match, because not only did it have a bad scoreline, it also had issues that were beyond just player performance. First of all, Fnatic are behind the meta with their composition, whereas Team Heretics are actually ahead of the meta with their comp. The Gecko KO looks amazing on this map. The teams that are playing it are having tons of success. We saw both of the top teams at Madrid adopting this as well. And Heretics are taking that one step further by getting rid of the duelist, which you really don't need that much on Icebox, and deciding to add a Sage into the mix too. Love that idea. Meanwhile, Fnatic barely catching up with the meta game from last year, running Viper Harbor here, which, while it's decent, actually just kind of gets hard countered by a lot of the double flash compositions. So I'm not a big fan of it. I think it's unfavored in the matchups. And we'll go through some of the reasons and some of the big rounds that indicate other problems with their game. So here we find ourselves in round 3. This is the bonus round for Heretics. They've already won the pistol off the back of being able to secure a post plant over towards B. It was boring. I'm not going to show it. But this round actually demonstrates some really good individual ability from Fnatic. They're trying to fight over towards B aggressively, which is more difficult with this version of Icebox. The Dizzy's great there from Rienz. It tells them that somebody's fighting close. And Durka, Boaster, they continue holding this. They had the high tide to support them at the beginning. Now they don't anymore. And Durka is going to spot the jump spot, try to punish, realizes he's going to get swung from the other side, pops dash, gets the punish. Great read. And you'll also notice here that Durka goes for the big rotate all the way over to A, anticipating the fact that Heretics are going to do the same. Heretics do take a little while to do this. They're in a 4v5 situation. Throw the Dizzy again just to make sure that people have backed off, and now they're going to group up over towards A. Now, just to take a moment to talk about their composition, this double flash comp that they're running with Miniboo and Rienz, the most important area of the map that they need is just this first part of A. It's very difficult for the defenders to stop you getting this part when you're on the attack side. They have to commit really heavily on defense, and with just a little bit of the refreshable utility, you can push them back. So most of the time, this Gecko KO comp is going to have pipes control. And look at what Miniboo and Rienz do with that. They're going to start grouping up over towards A and get set up to go for a flash Dizzy combo. Usually the pathing of those is going to go from pipes towards the back right of sight, but this time Miniboo throws his flash towards the left, and you can see on the minimap there that Boo was pinging out where he's going to wall. They throw the knife, they realize that Durka's here, and Miniboo flashes through the wall. That allows the wall to go down. The second wall, the Sage wall, I should say. And here, I just want to point out how good that double peek is. Let's go back and just take a look at that again. Benji Fishy contests to try to get the kill on anybody who's breaking the Sage wall. Doesn't quite manage that. But then they set up a dynamic second double peek for somebody else who might be contesting the Sage wall. Miniboo is on top of 410 right now, up here. He's going to peek through the Viper wall as Benji Fishy is peeking low. And just take a look at how good this post plant is in terms of being dynamic, having people moving around, constantly trying to set up plays, double faces, flash peeks. So here's the first double face. Benji, Miniboo. You can barely see it here because it happens so quickly. But Miniboo swings through the top. Benji's down below. They swing onto a player towards backside that's just trying to control some space. That's Chronicle. He falls. It's now a 4v4. Take a look at this as well. Benji Fishy has to back off. This that you see over in the corner here, this is Miniboo's flash that he's decided to bounce, I believe, off the wall on an angle a little bit like this to set up, and he's got his back. It looks like he's not even looking towards rafters, but he's doing this to dodge the flash. He's trying to set up a double face here again, so Miniboo's done one double face with Benji Fishy to support the wall going down on the left. Now they're re-clearing rafters on the right in response to Leo using his drone, which they think is going to be supporting a player swinging out rafters. They're right, it's Durka. And they're able to go 1-for-1 in this situation too. Yes, Rienz falls. Miniboo's there with the trade. Look at how dynamic they are again. Boo gets tagged on the low ground, immediately moves up towards the high ground afterwards as well. And with Boo positioned up here on the high ground, when he goes down to Boaster, you spot out... I'll take a look at the minimap and just blow it up even further here. You spot out Benji Fishy, who was previously detected on this side by the, oh, maybe that was Miniboo. Anyway, they realized that Miniboo was somewhere over there. They're not really worried about Maze. He swings through the high tide to be able to trade out this kill and put them in a 2v1. Lovely situation to make this very difficult for Leo, and constantly looking to work plays, not just holding static positions in the post plant, but actually moving, trying to get the double face off, anticipating what Fnatic are going to be going for, breaking the Sage wall, trying to punish that, looking to swing out rafters. Fnatic tried to punish that as well, always trying to make something move, and that's how they secured their bonus to be able to get up to a 3-0 and then 4-0 beginning. So after getting themselves up to this 4-0 lead, round 5 is where the little small details start to add up. And actually, I think Fnatic end up winning this round, but I still want to point out how good it was from Heretics and how Fnatic seem a little behind when it comes to this kind of stuff. So the first thing I want to point your attention to is that Benji Fishy has a lineup here for a nanoswarm that goes through to break this turret. And I think he's already done it in a previous round, and Alfia just allowed the turret to die. And it might be this round where he ends up retracting it. But either way, the nanoswarm lineup denying the turret here ends up being really interesting. So you see this at the beginning. Nanoswarm, you can hear it. retract the turret at the very beginning because Alpha lost the turret in a previous round when that happened. And now, what does this do to the minimap situation? Well, when you don't have the turret here, this turret is so powerful because it looks towards orange in case you're deciding to lurk through the Viper wall. It also looks towards tube in case you're looking to lurk up tube. So with combination with this alarm bot, it allows you to have much more comfort about the fact that nobody is going for the tube lurk, nobody's going for the orange lurk, and crucially, one of the big things that's made Fnatic so good on defense on this map for so long is that they stacked their composition with sentinels that could allow their player positioning to be more flexible. Because if you have permanent info in mid from your utility, you don't need players in mid. You can have your players anywhere you like. You can stack over towards different sites, make it much more difficult for the attackers. This round, because the turret goes down, Boaster and Alpha are actually forced to go for a mid-round re-clear towards tube, towards orange, something to regain this information and make sure that lurk plays are not happening. And sometimes Boaster will call these kind of mid-round re-clears anyway, even though they have the Killjoy utility up. But you see, Boaster is kind of now stuck here, watching orange. They've got good info coming from Durka over towards A, but Boaster is stuck now, watching orange, waiting for this lurk play, and wondering if people could go up tube. And this is the second part of the details that I think are really, really important here. You see the positioning of all of the Team Heretics players, right? They are looking to try to put pressure on somebody who would be holding towards yellow and looking to take an aggressive angle. As far as they know, that could be Durka with the operator. That could be somebody holding in a spot where they're playing off a teammate. And this is a very classic positioning setup that Fnatic have. They've got Alpha here who's looking to either take contact for Chronicle to peek, or they're looking to set up the swing the other way around where Chronicle will take contact first and then Alpha comes in to bail him out. Either way you run this, you need to be cautious and aware of Miniboo's knife, which has already been used in the round but is just about to come back off cooldown. Chronicle knows this, so his positioning is quite passive here. You can just see him behind the HUD. He knows that when this knife comes through over towards yellow, he's going to be out of range, and then he is going to start pathing forwards to get back into this classic bait and switch setup that Fnatic are looking to go for. Look how perfectly Miniboo plays this situation, though.
For the right opportunity, Team Heretics.
Notice how Chronicle is not exposed to any of the sightlines right now, but the knife is positioned such that he has to take a tiny step back and expose himself to this minute crack angle right here between these crates and this box. And he puts up his orb to block this sightline as soon as the knife comes through. I'll play it again for you in real time. Chronicle could not adjust to this quicker than he does. And Miniboo sprays him down. Let's take that back 5 seconds. Think how you might have improved this. There's no way. There's simply no way. Miniboo's got such a great awareness of how somebody might try to play around his knife and what he needs to do to punish it. Not only is the crosshair placement perfect to make sure Chronicle dies to a headshot, he's got the crack angle perfectly down. The knife positioning is immaculate just to get Chronicle pushed into that spot. And Chronicle tries to bloom his orb to cover him when he is forced to take that extra step, and he can't. And suddenly this bait and switch setup is completely broken. I don't know if he can find a safe enough place to be. Now this ends up being a 4v4 retake. I believe they get a kill kind of as Team Heretics goes for the plant. And Fnatic win the 4v4 retake because Fnatic's still a really good team. And also, Fnatic have a good composition for going for retake setups as well. But the details here are so good for Heretics. And these kind of details are missing for Fnatic. Not only does their compositional meta seem a little behind the trend, but their understanding of the scrim meta, of how small interactions work and what you need to be scared of, seems a little behind as well compared to the very top teams in EMEA. Another really important part of the scrim meta is how you use ultimates and how you're aware of how they can get countered. Going into this round, we have a lockdown on either side. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to in round 8. It's 5-2 in favor of Team Heretics. And you can see that Fnatic are trying to set up an aggressive play at the beginning of the round, disrupting Team Heretics from getting into position over towards pipes where their team composition thrives the most, and where the lockdown would most likely get used. They push them back, Durka misses the shot, and now Team Heretics very meticulously take their place forwards. Notice how that mosh pit was used to clear out the pipes position if somebody was trying to play there, which Leo likes to do occasionally, and certainly if you're playing against a flash comp, people would play there a lot more often.
Sitting back for a second,
This makes space. The Dizzy is also fantastic to push back Durka again and maintain that pipes control.
Ready to be used on A, so I wonder if it's
Killjoy ult gets used on A, and Fnatic's team composition does not have tools to deal with this. Another amazing part about the Gecko KO comp is that the Gecko nade and the Mosh even too, if you wanted to combine it with some nanoswarms or something, these tools are amazing to deal with lockdowns. The Fnatic composition does not really have anything for that unless you're going to be running your Killjoy with a nano lineup. It just, teams do not run those kind of setups to deal with it at the moment, and certainly Fnatic have not thought that far ahead. Their game plan to deal with this was, let's push Durka up aggressively, not relying on utility. Look at the way that this works the opposite way around. Fnatic are just thinking here about playing retake with their own Killjoy lockdown. That's not going to work. Boaster's in position here, and they're unaware. The lockdown gets used here for Alpha. This is going to get broken immediately. Look at that. You can see it in the corner over here. This is a lineup from Jenny that Miniboo sets up for instantly. And he's immediately throwing a bounce nade. It bounces off this wall and then falls into this corner to break the lockdown. This is not new stuff that Team Heretics are bringing. Almost all of the teams that came to Madrid had these kind of protocols for dealing with that classic A lockdown. And Fnatic seem like they're behind the scrim meta, because if all of the teams you're playing against are gonna have those protocols, you've got to adjust as well. You've got to start using the lockdown over towards Heaven, or you've got to start doing a fast retake at the same time as the lockdown is being used so that you catch these players trying to break it. There have to be additional layers that Fnatic at the moment are just not going for. On top of this as well, I mean, Boaster even takes damage from the bloody thing. He's taking damage from the fragment grenade, which shows, I think, how unaware they were that that kind of play was going to come through. The way in which this round ends is absolutely bonkers. And actually, Fnatic probably should have won it. There was a tiny, tiny margin, and Team Heretics managed to push it over the line. But what's really important when you approach Valorant analysis is to not take it on a results-based system. Just because Fnatic got into a good position on the retake doesn't mean that they didn't misplay the ult situation, right? Because there's so many variables. Just because Heretics won the round does not mean that they played the post-plant situation perfectly. But what's important here is that I think Fnatic had a strategic game plan problem that they can address heading into the future games. Moving on to round 10, it's 7-2 in favor of Team Heretics. The details are really adding up. Fnatic tried to get into an aggressive A position again, trying to deny that space from Team Heretics. They want to force people into B. They want to play those B retakes. And I think Fnatic actually, this round is a good demonstration of their macro wins. Boaster's calling still looked really good in this match, in my opinion, but the micro failures. In this round, Boaster calls a very nice re-clear of A. They don't see anybody contesting Durka's position, so they decide to push all the way deep, which is going to allow them to get onto a flank. They even have a cascade to try to get past this turret, which I think is fairly interesting. But on the other side of the map, over towards B, the players on this side, Alpha and Chronicle, are not set up properly to deal with one of the most classic things that Team Heretics composition can do, which is this double flash KO and Dizzy combo through the wall into backside. Holding in Chronicle's position right now is very, very dangerous against the KO and Gecko compositions, especially if you don't have support from another player who's playing over towards, for example, Kitchen. When you watched Gen G play against Loud, I think it was, Gen G were trying to run this strategy, but Loud had a very good anti for it, where they would play less in Kitchen, and he had an amazing angle to play anti and then swing back in. Alpha is in a spot here where it's not as simple for him to be able to play anti and still have a lot of value. You'll see how awkward it is for him in a moment. And Chronicle gets completely caught by this. So while the macro idea of the map rotations and the info game is good here for Fnatic, their micro and execution of how to actually deal with this very standard play from Heretics fails again. Here it is. Flash, Dizzy, Chronicle completely caught. Look how awkward this is from Alpha as well. He does manage to get a kill onto Boo, who plants in the default spot, but no Nanoswarm placed down to stop the push into Snowman and help Chronicle out. Alpha not in a position where he can easily play anti and get free kills. And the B site is just completely taken. And all three of these Fnatic players are now separated. These are the kind of retakes that maybe they would have won last year when they could just overpower people based on their individual performance. But they certainly can't against some of the top teams in EMEA, and certainly not when they're also feeling under the weather and they're losing a lot of their gunfights. You are just not going to see those rounds where Fnatic play completely spread and still win all of their duels anymore. By the time we get into the other pistol, it's 9-3, and Fnatic are basically out of the game already. So there's barely that much to really analyze on Fnatic's attack side. But I just want to point out their pistol round. They put a little bit of A pressure early on here, Fnatic, and then they go into a B split. So a nice idea. They're trying to pull rotations over towards A, and then Fnatic go into their actual pistol setup. But I think this pistol round strat relies on your opponents not being very good at the game. Because while the early A pressure is a nice idea, this cascade down mid, and the utility now that Boaster's throwing with the high tide, and he throws another cascade, I believe, here to stop them being pressured from Kitchen. You'll see here, yep, another cascade being used. All of this kind of stuff, which I'll highlight on the minimap, this cascade here, the high tide here, the cascade here, it essentially telegraphs that you've stopped going for an A hit and you are now going into a mid to B split. Yes, you've pulled people away from B. Yes, you're going to find it easy to path through B, but you're also giving your opponents all of the information that you are doing that kind of pathing. And there's nothing wrong with that necessarily if it ends in a plant and you can play good post plants. But what we'll notice here, just by looking at the minimap, is that they don't try to play a standard post plant and just get Chronicle in really quickly with Leo to get plant down and play at the post. Instead, they actually tap the spike here and then run away, expecting Team Heretics to go for a flood defense, ignoring Orange completely. Why would you ignore Orange when the attackers just telegraphed that they were coming through that direction? Of course Fnatic are going to leave somebody in there, which is why I say this strategy looks like it was designed to only work against bad teams. Because better teams will simply realize that you've left lurkers in towards Kitchen or Orange and re-clear. Look how diligently Team Heretics are here, clearing Kitchen. Here comes that fake tap. And Chronicle backs away.
Waiting for the commit.
But they found Durka.
And Team Heretics, they don't go for the Flood Defend as soon as they tap. They clear Durka first. They clear Boaster afterwards when Boaster feels forced to go for a play. And now when the next tap comes through, now they feel like they've dealt with the mid players, especially after Alpha reveals his hand and they know there's only two in front. Team Heretics can now focus forwards, Flood Defend, and completely wipe them away. With the pistol down now, they're 10-3 to the bad, and Fnatic are in a rough situation because they need that ult cycling to happen in order for them to have any success. Despite winning the bonus round, though, for Fnatic, this next round is really the final nail in the coffin. Round 16, Fnatic have to win this one. Not only because it's important that they're down so many rounds, but also it gets their ult cycle rolling. Cascade here makes Rienz scared to pick up his Thrash, and Team Heretics are pushed away at the very beginning of the round. Fnatic, after doing a little bit of early A pressure, start to regroup over towards B, picking up the spike. 3 players still kept here, over towards A by all of this early pressure, so good macro again here from Boaster. And this situation is going to end up becoming a 3v3 retake scenario. Fnatic are successful at being able to get in, get some picks, and get the plant down, but they lose 2 players in the process.
Teed up for success. Punishing Durka and
Patatek had previously played yellow and died in the prior round, so they weren't expecting him to still be there. That's just a conditioning thing. That's the reason why Durka looked a little clueless in that spot. He just assumed there would be nobody there. We see a 4v4, Alpha swings, and now we get into our 3v3 with the plant going down. So I'll wait until Boaster plants, and then we'll pause and we'll talk about what's going on. Alright, so now you're in a 3v3 scenario where Fnatic have got themselves posted up fairly nicely here. They don't have very much post-plant utility. They've only got the single Viper molly, but they've got Boaster's utility is going to come back off cooldown. They're going to have Recon coming back off cooldown as well. So they can still make plays to make this difficult for Team Heretics. On the other side, though, Heretics still have full Gecko utility because they weren't really pressured over towards A, and it's a bloody Gecko. They can pick their stuff back up. So this is still going to be tough for Fnatic, sorry.
One off of Thrash. If he's able to get that first kill.
They fall back into a very standard retake scenario.
There's still a little bit left with Heretics here.
And Boaster throws this high tide that allows them to focus on spike only if they swing to the right, and if they swing to the left, their sightlines are not obstructed and they can take fights properly. I like this idea. I think it also combos quite well with when Leo gets his recon back online, and they can certainly make a bunch of plays off this. It seems like a good idea to me. On the other side of things, we've also got a classic Mosh lineup from Rians that lands back over towards back yellow. And that clears out the left side. So now Fnatic are kind of forced to just fight forwards here. Leo gets caught inside this slow, and Boo has found a pocket here. If you look at the geometry of what's going on, there's like a little corner angle here that Boo has found himself in. If you imagine this as being the little gap that Boo's found himself in here. And this area, he's not slowed because he's in front of the high tide. He's not getting slowed by it, and he's finding somebody who is. So he's got a movement advantage. He can isolate this 1v1 against Leo, and he's got a slightly higher chance of being able to win this. And he does. He wins the fight. He's now in a really good spot because if he goes for a wide swing, he's not slowed and he can play in the other two players. Notice how he puts this pause into his game as well. He doesn't immediately go for a re-swing. He pauses. He waits for his teammates to get ready for the next swing. 3, 2, 1. Goes for the wide swing. And even if Boo hadn't landed the kill, the other two of Benji and Rians were swinging through the wall. Does it matter that Benji and Rians are slowed when they swing through? No, because the crosshair's being dragged by Boo's wide swing. These kind of small plays, the details, are awesome from Heretics. And it's one of the big reasons why they ended up winning this. Overall in this match, it looked like Fnatic were going to get really lucky and play against a Team Heretics where Miniboo had exams and they were playing with multiple subs and Woot couldn't be here because he had a visa. It looked like a free win for Fnatic. But as soon as Miniboo came back in and they were playing with that lineup that had done really well in kickoff and had played some top teams extraordinarily closely at Madrid as well, it was just done. And not only that, Fnatic had the fucking shitting disease as well, so they got doubly screwed over compared to what they were thinking the game would be. They looked like they were behind the meta. They looked like they were behind the scrim meta as well. So I'm not just talking in terms of their comps. I'm also talking the way that they play the small details. They look behind in terms of their understanding and awareness of what they need to be careful about. And also their ability to create plays on the fly is just so much inferior. And they still actually made Lotus incredibly close. And they still had some, although small, amounts of decent rounds on Icebox too. Fnatic's next game is against Giants. They should easily win that. Giants look lost. They look like a new team. And unless Fnatic completely crumble individually, that should be a free win. Their next game after that, though, is against Gentle Mates. And I think that will pose more of a test. Because Gentle Mates have such an unorthodox style. Their compositions are weird. It's going to force either Fnatic to do a lot of prep work beforehand or adapt on the fly, but we saw that the macro ideas were actually pretty good still. It's the micro stuff and the execution and the coming up with advantages and plays in the small rounds. That's the stuff that was missing for Fnatic, I think. And Fnatic essentially should be just cruising through until about another month's time where they play against Na'Vi, and that should be a titanic matchup of EMEA. So if you're a Fnatic fan, don't worry too much. But they do definitely have some stuff to work on. This isn't just the case that the team had bad individual play because they were feeling ill and everything else went out the window. I think they're still behind the game a little bit. You know, it's difficult to tell from only a single game, but that's my read on it. Let me know what you think in the comments.